Okay, so maybe not everything is the fault of movie studios. Hey there, everybody. It's that time again where I like to talk about LGBTQ plus related elements of entertainment media. And this is actually going to be a bit of an addendum and an addition and expansion on a rather old video. So 2 years now? I can't even remember. But a while back, I did my video on, it wasn't queerbaiting in the sense that most people use it, but what it was about was when filmmakers and studios tout inclusion in things and then don't actually have it there. Examples at the time included J.K. Rowling claiming that Dumbledore was gay without it ever being in evidence, even in the newer Fantastic Beasts movies. The claim by one of the writers of Solo that Lando was pansexual when there was no clear evidence of that. LeFou in the Beauty and the Beast remake being claimed to be gay when there is at best a vague hint at that and nothing definitive that can't be ignored by anyone who chooses to ignore it, and a ton more beyond that. When I say I'm sort of touching back on that same thing, what I mean is that this perpetuation of talking up representation to the point that it feels like it is overshadowing the film, and it feels like these studios are making a bigger deal out of it instead of just letting LGBTQ plus people just exist, just be there, not make a deal out of it. The thing is, it's not always the studios making the deal. While I stand by that previous video and all the examples I mentioned in it, it's worth noting that most of those, including the few that I cited as decent examples of how to do this properly, largely came out in interviews. These weren't press releases. Even like the incredibly offensive back-padding session that was LeFou with his exclusively gay moment in Beauty and the Beast, that wasn't a press release. That was something that came up in an interview. Now, I can and do still argue that in that case, director Bill Condon, and in most cases, these writers, producers, directors, etc., should just keep their mouths shut and let the representation speak for itself, if it's even there. But what will happen is, first off, if a reporter, article writer, whoever is conducting the interview, thinks there's something there, catches whiff of there being any kind of inclusion, they know that's a story. Or they at least know they can treat it like it is one, and they will try and tease that out of these people. Still their fault for talking. They're professionals. They should know how to do this. But it becoming a story, it becoming the headline out of the article, that is the fault of the media talking about it. Because you can have someone like Bill Condon give a full interview about all these aspects to this movie that he's made, and he mentions one thing about a character he claims to be gay, and that person he gives the interview to then goes up and writes with a big banner headline, "Gay character in Disney film." That wasn't what the point of the interview was. It wasn't the primary focus. It wasn't what was talked about the most, but they make it the headline. That is a choice, not of the director, the writer, even the studio. That is a choice made by the outlet reporting it. And this is how media outlets, well, it's one of a number of ways, I'll talk about some others, that media outlets contribute to this problem. Now, they don't create the problem. The problem of representation and failures at representation, either bad representation, tokenism, baiting a representation that is not actually clearly evident, all that is existing problems. But the way in which it gets reported, the prominence of it, and it signal boosts things that compound the problem. Here's another good, fairly recent example. So the Pixar film Onward, which I have seen, and it's fine. That film has in it a lesbian character. It is one of the police. She is talking to another character. It's not worth going into everything going on in the scene, but she's talking to another character and she mentions her, I can't remember if it's wife or girlfriend, but she talks about that. And it's very casual. It comes up very natural in conversation. And I would actually say that's a fairly decent bit of casually referenced representation. Confirming it and dropping it into the conversation in a way that felt natural and unforced and fit the scene, it's pretty solid. But I was frustrated because I already knew it was there going in. Not because Pixar had trumpeted that it was in there, but because once reviewers started seeing the movie, they spilled the beans on it and made a story out of it, whereas the studio and the makers of the film didn't bring it up, so far as I could find, themselves at all prior to release. They may have been asked about it, but they were not the first ones to bring it up. It was brought up by reporters who knew about it once reviewers started seeing the movie. In other words, the issue that I would have with that situation, which is the fact that it was headline news that there's a gay in a Pixar, the fact that that was big headline news is what ticks me off, not the representation itself in that specific instance. And in that case, and not only that case, but that is a very clear-cut and easy for me to express to you case of the outlet making it a story. The studio didn't do that. The movie didn't do that. But it ended up as a story anyways. Because the sad reality is that this is a way in which the media cycle and the way that it is in perpetual motion around the production of these big films, and that cycle is always hungry for content about it. Now, usually, this works to the advantage of the studios making this entertainment. Disney and Marvel have really mastered this because, they will drop something as innocuous as just a title for a film, and they know that the entire geek film related media is going to start doing all these speculation pieces about what characters will be in it. Here's the history of these characters in the comics. Here's what might be in the film. And then next little nugget that they drop, whole same thing again. But where that ends up being used for evil, to be slightly hyperbolic about it, is when they take something that is not meant to necessarily be part of the media cycle, but because they know it will get them clicks. Be they clicks from people who are in favor of this and want to support it, or clicks from people who are outraged at it and want to find out what they should be angry at. It's a headline. And it is very, very easy, especially in something like a Pixar, a Disney, animated family film, Marvel, Star Wars, DC, anything that is considered family entertainment, trying to incorporate these things, even if they don't do what I have yelled at them about, which is to preemptively pat themselves on the back, talk it up ahead of release, and be all, look how inclusive and progressive we are. Even if they don't do that, it's still going to feel like they did, because as soon as the media finds out about it, which at the latest possible time will be the instant a reviewer sees it, then it's going to still feel like that happened anyway, because the same headlines are going to happen, the same articles, the same people writing about whether or not this is sincere representation, about whether or not this is the end of Western civilization because it's there, about whether it should be boycotted, about those morons who say they're going to boycott it. All those spins, all those takes will happen regardless, simply because we exist in a piece of media. Heaven forfend that there be somebody who is not cisgender, heterosexual. Ah, my goodness. And especially in something like Onward. It was a cyclops. There's a world with centaurs and elves and manticores. But there's a lesbian in it. Make a headline. The media is part of the problem. And that's not going to go away because they're going to write what they think will get them clicks and get them noticed and get them stories. And the only way that's going to get better, well, there's two ways that'll get better. One is to simply not include LGBTQ plus characters ever again. And if you are even considering that as an option, fuck you. Number two is to include us often enough that we're not newsworthy anymore. I've talked before about how the fewer instances of representation there are, the more noteworthy they become. These are headlines because they are exceptions and they're unexpected or they're boundary breaking or what have you. But if, we were just present in enough media that nobody was making a deal of, not the makers, not the characters in the films or whatever, media would eventually stop writing about it because that's not news anymore. Oh, there's a trans character in a DreamWorks movie. That's not news. Who cares? Oh, that's my dream world right now. Someday. Okay, so I don't have a sponsor for this video. However, in the space where normally a sponsorship drop might go, I am instead going to highlight a creator who I think people who watch my stuff would enjoy and appreciate. And for this one, I want to highlight someone who actually has two channels. The YouTube channel Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy, which is about fandom shipping, and also Casually Comics. The same creator for both. She is absolutely wonderful and delightful. She is just a joy to listen to hear her talk about these things that she loves. She is updating more regularly at this point on Casually Comics. You can tell that that's sort of a bit more where her head's been at lately, but both are worth checking out, and I do recommend them. Whatever your thoughts on anything that I have just said, leave them down, respectful please, in the comments section, and let's talk about it. The usual stuff to do, you know what it is. Like, subscribe. I have a Patreon. Of course I do. You can help me out on that. Any amount is very helpful, but even if you're not able to do that, the like, the subscribe, and sharing this around are all big helps. So thank you so much for listening, and until next time, this council is adjourned.